Hello, I'm Ingrid and I'm 27 years old. I lost both my parents at a very young age due to a car accident. They had no relatives to take care of me, so I was placed in an orphanage. I stayed there for about 3 years until I was adopted by my new parents. As it turned out, my adoptive parents were billionaires, which meant I lived a pretty wealthy and satisfying life afterward. They didn't want my adoption to become a big spectacle, so they kept it quiet. They preferred doing good deeds without announcing it to the world. When I grew up and got my own place, they decided to expand their business even further and set off on a tour across Europe to explore new possibilities. It was during this time that I met Patrick, who is now my ex-husband. We crossed paths in college and instantly took a liking to each other. After a few chats, Patrick, a cheerful and thoughtful guy, grew on me even more. Our dates eventually turned us into an official couple. Our relationship felt flawless except for one issue. It was no secret that Patrick's family didn't approve of me. The first time I met them was right after Patrick and I graduated from college. He held off introducing me to his parents until we were both settled in life, meaning we both had solid jobs. Patrick had cautioned me that his parents could be a bit critical when it came to their kids' partners, and he wanted me to leave the best impression possible. I didn't mind, though meeting them still made me nervous. By the time Patrick brought me to meet his parents, we'd been together for a solid 4 years. In those 4 years we'd also gotten engaged. So, I suppose that alone was bound to stir trouble with his parents, since they'd never even known me as his girlfriend. I remember panicking about it with Patrick the day before the meeting. "They're going to hate me, Patrick." "They won't, I promise. Don't you think they'll be shocked to hear we're engaged?" "Sure, maybe, but I don't think it'll be a huge deal." "Are you serious right now? You were nervous about introducing me because you know how judgmental they are, and you think presenting me as your fiancé won't make them judge me even more." "Look, even if they do, will their opinions really matter?" "Not to me, but I don't know about you. You're always so cautious about them." "I promise it won't affect me or matter at all, Ingrid." "Alright, if you say so. But do you think we should hold off telling them we're engaged and maybe break the news a month later? Would that make you feel better about all this?" "I'm fine with either option. I think we should keep it under wraps just in case. I'd do anything to get on their good side." "You've got nothing to worry about. I'll be right there with you no matter what." "Thanks, Patrick." The only reason I was freaking out so much was that every time I suggested Patrick tell his parents about me, he'd make a big fuss about how they wouldn't approve. By this point I was starting to get why. You see, Patrick's family was quite wealthy and they loved living extravagantly. They wanted the same for their kids. The only way they'd accept their children dating someone was if that person was just as rich, or richer, than they were. Back then my lifestyle didn't scream wealthy by their standards. I hadn't told Patrick about my family because I didn't see the need. Plus, once I figured out why he was so hesitant to let me meet his parents, it felt even less important for them to know who my father was. I wanted them to like me for who I was, not for my money. I naively thought they'd warm up to me that way, but boy was I mistaken. We agreed to meet Patrick's parents at an upscale restaurant. As we walked in, Patrick held my hand. I wore my engagement ring on a necklace chain. I wanted it close without drawing attention to it. When we reached the table, his parents already looked annoyed. Patrick had warned me they were sticklers for punctuality, and since we arrived exactly 2 minutes late, we were off to a rough start. They gave me a quick once-over and scrunched their faces in distaste. For a while they acted like I wasn't even there, chatting only with Patrick. I'll admit I felt tiny under their gaze. The longer they ignored me, the stronger my urge to bolt became. I mostly kept my head down until Patrick finally forced their attention my way. "Mom, Dad, you can't just talk to me here. This is my amazing girlfriend, Ingrid." "Oh, hello. It's a pleasure to meet you both." "Hi. I wish I could say the same." "Mom, what?" "I'm just being honest. So, Ingrid, I hear you and Patrick met in college. Is that right?" "Yes, we did. We shared a few classes together." "Oh, and how did you manage to get into that college?" From what I know, the tuition's steep and it's tough to get accepted. Dad, that's enough. Patrick, you won't speak to your father like that. He's asking a fair question, Ingrid. Answer him. Well, I got a full scholarship. I'm so grateful I had the chance to attend because I learned so much and I met Patrick, which has been one of the greatest things in my life. Of course it's one of the greatest things for you. He's got money and you need that. At least you've got some smarts because your looks aren't much. You know what? That's enough. We're leaving. Come on, Ingrid. Patrick grabbed my hand and we stormed out. I was stunned by how his parents had treated me. I couldn't believe people could be so cruel and so openly to someone's face. I was too shocked to feel anything at first. The car ride home was quiet. Patrick was seething. When we got back, he made sure I was okay, but honestly, I didn't know how to feel. I dressed nicely, sat properly, and avoided ordering anything pricey, yet somehow, without me saying much, Paula and Marley had already judged me. Patrick didn't talk to his parents for a while after that. They texted him saying we'd been rude for walking out on them during lunch. He didn't reply and only messaged them a month later to say he'd gotten engaged. They weren't thrilled, but Patrick warned them he'd cut contact if they said or did anything against me. They offered to fund our wedding, but only if they controlled every detail. Naturally, neither Patrick nor I wanted that, so we chose the next best thing. We eloped. My parents were in Europe and knew about the elopement. They were just glad I was happy and even sent Patrick and me a gift. An expensive painting. Patrick raised an eyebrow at it, but I shrugged it off, saying they could afford it. The next time we saw Paula and Marley was at a party they threw for their anniversary. Honestly, I was kind of pleased they'd invited me despite their dislike. But when we arrived, everyone ignored me. Being snubbed by 2 people felt bad, being ignored by 30 was mortifying. I stuck by Patrick's side mostly, but no one bothered to speak to me. If I tried starting a conversation, people either gave me a dismissive look and walked off or kept talking to Patrick like I hadn't said a word. By the end of the night, I was in tears, humiliated and repulsed by everyone's behavior. The crowd asked Paula and Marley to give a speech and they obliged. I was exhausted and ready to leave, but in their speech they started by thanking almost everyone in the room for being part of their lives. A subtle jab at me. They threw more digs and the guests laughed. Eventually I stood up and left. I took an Uber home, crying the whole way and even after until Patrick returned. When he got back, he looked upset and angry. Why did you walk out like that? Do you know how embarrassing that was for me? What? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Ingrid. I had to deal with my parents yelling at me and guests pitying me for being with you. Are you serious? What about how embarrassing it was for me? Oh, come on, Ingrid. You could have handled it for one night. It was my parents' anniversary, for God's sake. I was ignored by everyone and your parents made fun of me in a toast. How could I be okay with that? I'm not saying they were right, but you could have toughed it out. I'd have talked to them later. What good would that do me? I don't like being humiliated. Everyone was laughing at me. You've never been in that spot, so it's easy for you to brush it off. My parents expect an apology from you. So do I. I won't be doing that unless they apologize first. As for you, I don't see why I owe you one. You always stood up for me. Why is this different? It's different because you embarrassed my family in front of all our guests. And your parents embarrassed me, your wife, in front of theirs. Maybe my parents were right about you. You're impossible. With that, Patrick slept in the guest room. I couldn't fathom why he'd flipped like this. Was it really that bad for him when I left? He'd always been the first to defend me, especially against his parents' nonsense. My walking out should have shown how awful they made me feel, yet he didn't care. He didn't speak to me for a week. I got texts from his parents calling me ungrateful and an embarrassment. I tried talking to him, but he wouldn't budge. Eventually, I caved and apologized to him and his parents. It felt degrading, but I loved Patrick and didn't want this to ruin us. Things only got worse after that. His parents retired and started hosting weekly family dinners. Patrick was always invited. The first time he brought me along. The moment I stepped in, the room turned awkward. Paula was busy getting ready and didn't see me right away, but Marley and Patrick's siblings gave me uneasy glances. They didn't talk to me and Patrick left me standing alone while he caught up with them. When Paula came downstairs and spotted me, she practically charged over in fury. "What are you doing here?" "Excuse me." "No, I won't excuse you. What are you doing in my house?" "Well, you invited us for dinner." "Wrong. I invited Patrick for a family dinner. I'm Patrick's wife, so I'm part of the family, aren't I?" "Absolutely not. An orphan like you has no place in this family." "What? You thought you could hide that from us? We run background checks on our kids' spouses and you're nowhere near my son's level." "Why not? That can't be the only reason I don't belong. You're unattractive and broke. You'd never fit in our elite circles. I never want to see you again. Why are you so shallow? Are you afraid I'll ruin your reputation just by existing? Doesn't it matter that I make your son happy? If happiness made money, plenty of people would be billionaires. That's why you'll never fit with us. Or maybe I'll never be as superficial as you because I value people for who they are. You never even tried to know me before judging. I'm glad I don't fit with you. Ingrid, that's enough. Here's some cash. Get an Uber and go." I stared at Patrick in disbelief as he handed me the money. He shoved it into my hands and turned back to his mother. She smirked. Tears welled up as I walked out, crying in the Uber again. I couldn't understand why Patrick had changed so much. Was this his way of making amends with his parents after the party? Whatever it was, I was hurt and furious. He was fine with them using my past as a weapon and took their side instead of mine like he used to. I wanted to scream, but that would have made me look worse and proven them right, so I left. I replayed my words. Had I crossed a line? I didn't think so. I just stood up for myself calmly too. When Patrick got home, he went back to ignoring me. My heart was shattering. I felt so alone. He probably expected another apology, but I couldn't do it again. Paula had insulted me in the worst way and he was mad at me. I deserved an apology from him. For 2 weeks we didn't speak. It was tough at first, but I adjusted. His family's dinners continued weekly, leaving me home alone, which I didn't mind. One night my parents video called me. "Hey honey." "Hey sweetie. How's it going?" "Hey dad." "Hey mom." "Not good." "Why? What's wrong, sweetie? If you need help, just ask. I don't think you can fix this, but thanks." "Where's Patrick? Isn't he helping?" "That's the thing, he's part of the problem." "Huh. Sweetie, can you explain?" "His parents are rich and super snobby." "Oh, I hate those types. Tell me about it." "They think I'm some poor girl who can't meet their standards or fit in their fancy world, so they humiliate me every time I see them." "What the hell?" "Yeah. Last time, Patrick's mom thought calling me an orphan was a clever insult. That woman, I'll rip her apart. How dare she call my baby an orphan? Do they not know about us? I didn't tell them about you because I knew they'd treat me differently if they did. I wanted them to like me for me, not my money. As for Patrick, he's siding with them. He thinks I was rude for standing up for myself." "Honey, are you sure this is the guy you want to be with?" "I love him, but not like this. We haven't talked in 2 weeks and I'm oddly fine with it." "Alright sweetie. I'll hook you up with a friend there. And don't worry about us not helping, we might just get you some sweet revenge." "Huh? What do you mean?" "Your dad and I are coming next week. We plan to take you and Patrick on a trip, but now it'll just be you. More fun for us." "Really? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you both in person again." That lifted my spirits after so long. We chatted more and Dad shared his plan to help me. He asked where these dinners were held. They alternated between their house and restaurants, and conveniently, the week my parents were arriving, it was at a restaurant. I needed the exact location, so I checked Patrick's email on my phone. Paula and Marley loved emailing everything, so it was easy to find and send to my parents. Meanwhile, my mom's lawyer friend contacted me and we started the divorce process. My parents arrived, checked into their hotel and met me for lunch. Then they treated me to a spa day, saying I deserved it while they prepared to tackle my in-laws. They walked into the restaurant where Patrick and his family were. Dad said Marley and Paula started whispering when they recognized him. Mom recounted the exchange. Hello. Oh my gosh, Mr. Burns. What brings you here? Wow, I spotted some familiar faces and thought I'd join you. Familiar faces? Who do you mean, Mr. Burns? Well, I see Patrick. Hello. Pleasure to meet you. My daughter's told me a lot about you. Speaking of her, where is she? Your daughter? I think you're mistaken, she's not here. But she should be, right? Sorry, Mr. Burns, but we didn't know you had a daughter. Of course I do, she's married to Patrick. What? I'm sorry, but his wife's Ingrid, an orphan. Yes, I know. That's why we adopted her. Excuse me? You're her dad. Yes. And from what I hear, she's had issues with her in-laws. Now I see the problem, it's you. No, she hid this from us. We'd have treated her better if we knew. She didn't want your kindness based on her background. Oh well. She asked me to give this to Patrick. Dad handed Patrick the divorce papers and left. A few calls later, investors pulled out of Marley's business and it started crumbling. Nothing felt better than watching them fall to the level they mocked. I got nasty texts from Patrick's family, some begging me to undo it. Patrick signed the papers without a fight. My parents and I took a long vacation after. I had a blast and began healing. Losing the love of my life stung, but I learned to stand up for myself. I'm forever thankful to my parents and excited for what's next.